This photo, undated but probably taken on 11th March 1945, shows a section of the Thailand-Burma Railway around 2 kilometers north of Konkwita station, in the Kwai Noi River Valley currently submerged under the lake behind the Vajiralongkorn Dam. Two things are noteworthy in the photo. First, a stick of bombs is bursting along the road and across the road bridge a few meters west of the railway. They were aimed at the wooden trestle bridge Q365 in the center of the photo, but missed. Second, and of much greater interest, we are looking down on the construction site of the last steel bridge along the railway, here on the east side of the wooden bridge. All of the other steel bridges along the railway were finished a year and a half earlier during the initial construction of the railway. This one was unique in that the steel bridge was brought in later as an intended upgrade to the existing bridge. You can see forms for the concrete pillars in the river, and the railway approaches have been prepared with a long cutting approach on the south side and an embankment and trestle on the north side leading up to the future steel bridge. The camp in the photo is probably a Japanese engineering and construction camp and not an Allied POW camp. But this bridge was never finished. All the parts were on site, but the wood bridge had not yet become a significant target. Apparently the Japanese were reluctant to rivet all the pieces together and put the steel bridge in place, and it makes sense that a newly built steel bridge may have only attracted greater attention from the Allied bombers. As it happens, the bridge was targeted in the April 24th raid along the entire railway. This photo, taken from only 1,300 feet, shows the aftermath of that bombing, with both road bridges and both railway bridges damaged. In Warmanhoven's report on the railway, he describes this as what would have been the 9th steel bridge along the railway, had it been finished. And this leads to another point, the question of how many bridges were actually built along the Thailand-Burma Railway. If you say there were 688 bridges along the railway, of which 8 were made of steel, you're wrong on both counts. Those are the numbers which are often quoted, and I have also used them in the past, but they are in fact incorrect. Let's look at the steel bridges first. The number 8 comes from the original Warmanhoven report on the railway. He states that the Japanese built 8 steel girder bridges along the entire stretch of the railway. Warmanhoven then goes on to list 6 steel bridges at Kanchanaburi, Apollon, Apolline, Mazali, Launcy, and Ananquin. He then states that the other bridges were north of Tanbuzayat towards Moulmein, along the pre-war Burmese railway system. He was referring to these 2 steel bridges about 8 kilometers north of Tanbuzayat. They are pictured here again under attack on 5th of March 1945. But these 2 were built long before the war and along a completely different section of Burma's existing railway system, not along the Thailand-Burma Railway, so we cannot count these as being part of the Thailand-Burma Railway. But even so, Warmanhoven's remaining number of 6 steel bridges is not correct, as he omitted another bridge at Tanbaya, also known as Konkan, at the 361-kilometer mark. So the correct number of steel bridges is 7, with 1 in Thailand and 6 in Burma. Now for the total number of bridges along the railway, which is often quoted as 688. This number comes from DIR number 087, which lists all the bridges along the railway starting from Tanbuzayat, and the last bridge before reaching Nong Pladuk is Q688, hence the number 688. However, this number is also incorrect because the aerial recon photography used to compile the DIR did not capture all the bridges. A good example of this is the bridge just beyond Hellfire Pass. Anyone who has walked the Hellfire Pass trail will know that immediately after Hellfire Pass there is another bridge, but this is not listed in the DIR. The DIR captures Q580, a 180-foot viaduct, then Q581, a 380-foot viaduct, and then a cutting, which would later be more famously known as Hellfire Pass. But there is no mention of the bridge just leading into the cutting. So this is an example of one of the bridges which were not counted. How many more of these uncounted bridges are there? Unfortunately, we will never know for sure because so much of the railway has been destroyed, damaged, or submerged. But I believe the number of bridges which were missed is very small, probably less than 10. So there you go. The correct number of steel bridges is 7, and the correct total number of bridges is probably between 690 and 700, but will never be known. And that's all for this quick look at the so-called 9th steel bridge at Konkwita and the question of the total number of bridges along the Thailand-Burma Railway.